What's up, brother?
Howdy.
Drinks and dogs, man.
Man, it just keeps going. We don't stop. We don't quit.
Yeah, that's the whole point. We can't.
And you know what? It's not for lack of challenges either, because as we were just talking before we hit the record button, if people out there only knew what goes on behind the scenes to make one of these episodes, because we are not audio visual guys, we are not computer guys, we're dog trainers and dog owner trainers and business owners. And good golly, Miss Molly, I've been on YouTube for an hour before we started today, and I still got problems. You guys have had your own technical challenges, so the public better appreciate the crap out of this.
I mean, it's the crazy part about it is that, like what you said is like, there's so much that goes into actually producing one of these things. Like right now, typically we're running off the Logitech camera and all stuff like that, but we're running this off of an iPad because of our freaking computer with the computer we have wouldn't work. So fun stuff.
But here we are, episode 29.
Dude, so how's everything going? I know you said you're doing like a lot more working out. I saw I think I saw some on your post like that you were doing, like you were actually like you were working out and everything like that. So what's going on with that?
Big shout out to Chris Tollett. I gotta give this guy a plug. Like, holy macaroni salad. Trinity Alignment. If you go to Trinity Alignment on Instagram, I have fallen in love with the mace.
Yeah, you're talking about the last time.
Yeah, and he's been working me through that. Also, shout out to Charlie Keenan, my awesome physical therapist, Rewire Tribe. You can find him on Instagram, Rewire Tribe. So I got two professionals I'm working with, two coaches, which is just, it's the theme that we share to everyone, whether it's dog owners or dog trainers. Like, you got to have coaches. You got to invest in yourself. You got to invest in the support, so yeah, I have two separate guys that I've invested in because they're helping me and I'm reaping the rewards immediately. So I got that going on. That's awesome. I actually just joined another mastermind of entrepreneurs and business owners called Three Roads. I mean, anybody who is really serious about growing whatever they do. It's not dog trainers, it's business owners. I highly recommend they just check out Three Roads Coaching and Mastermind. Just keep on investing in myself, man, because I'm the one running the show over here. So I need support. I need help. And to think I could do it all by myself is like naive, arrogant, like ridiculous. So things are going well because I got the support. What about you? Speaking of support, I see your arms supported there.
Yeah, no, I'm a big dummy. So, what happens with I tore my, well, I've already had a torn shoulder. So I've been working with a torn shoulder for years now. And then I've ended up popping it out. There's actually like a video of it, like on my Instagram. You can see my shoulder go back, like when I was working with Wayne's dog, that Pressa.
The black one?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big dog.
Who's a beast. He's awesome. So like, I end up popping out that way because for me, like when I get injured, I'm always like, all right, I need to do this. I need to do it again because I need to make sure that like I'm not a sissy or anything like that, because that's just kind of how I am, like in that sense. So like, and ended up with this thing. So we haven't had the time yet to go to the hospital yet to go actually get everything taken care of. But now it's just, it's my strong hand.
My gosh.
But you brought up a good point. And I thought like, when we talk about like mentorship and like people who help advise and coaches and all those things like that, like, I have, and I talked about this on like another the table that we do, where it was like, like it's important to have like those people in there that will keep you kind of like in line. Like for me, I have Leopoldo Sarao that I talk to, is my jiu-jitsu coach. I have other people that I talk to in that sense. But I think it's like it's something that's necessary in that sense. Like you have to have somebody who's going to actually like kind of keep you accountable for everything you're doing, and also like teach you what to do too. So like we do that as well. And in the dog training world, I mean, mentorship is it's slightly dicey.
Slightly.
That's why I kind of wanted to be like, I wanted to kind of have like, I wanted to say it, and then you kind of carry on with that. So I didn't have to
Oh, okay.
say it.
We'll roll with that. I know my role. Yeah, it's not slightly dicey, man. It's scary.
My a mentor, Terry Macias, used to tell me, he's like, when he started to see that I was like training like people. He's like, Mike, he's like, you're training snakes. Eventually they're gonna bite you. And I was like, oh. And I've seen that over the years. I mean, like, shoot, man, Primal's 10 years old now. So I've seen that, transpire, even like recently I've seen that transpire. So like, that's one thing, like too, like, if we're trying to offer advice to dog trainers, what is your take on actual like mentorship in the dog training world?
I Good mentors are where you find them. Good students, good mentees are where you find them. So I don't want to follow the easy path of saying, oh, the world of dogs and dog training is different. You know what, man? No, it parallels culture. It parallels everything else. I'm sure the mentorship process, the pitfalls, the landmines are the same in every other industry. I have some good friends, some associates, some colleagues, some clients that are involved in the fitness space, right?
Yeah.
Well, you need mentors there too, right? You're learning a craft, you're learning a science, you're learning an art, you're learning all these different things. You're running a business, yeah. How do you know if you're involved with the right person? How do you know if you're following the right person, meaning someone who's going to help you get to where you want to go? You don't. And I think to speak intelligently or productively on the topic, it's for both potential mentors and potential mentees, just stay true to your mission. Like if you know what you're trying to accomplish, that's a good start.
Yeah.
And put yourself in places where you will interact and meet, if you're a potential mentee and you're looking for a mentor, you got to put yourself in the right places that align with your mission, that align with your goals. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Okay, put yourself around people that are accomplishing that. And you're at least setting yourself up to be in the right direction of getting it what you need. And like I said, that's not a dog training thing. That's anything thing, and mentors, you have some common sense, you should have some people skills. You should have a radar. You should be able to smell good people from shady people. And that is just something that comes with experience. And, you mentioned, getting bit. Well, sometimes you got to get bit a bunch of times to learn. And hopefully you learn from those mistakes. You identify what maybe led to that. And you don't repeat the patterns that put you in that position that got you bit. I think one thing for potential mentees is if you run into somebody who's, there's a difference between a teacher and a tyrant.
Yep, exactly.
And if someone's trying to lock you down and prohibit your thought and, don't listen to this person, don't listen to that person, that's a red flag. I tell all my mentees and people that I work with, like, no, I want you out there. I want you listening, because I know I can't control that. So all I can do is give you a lens to look at that through and encourage you to compare and contrast and eventually come to your own conclusion. That's
like, it's kind of like, I mean, and like you said, you kind of have to have that lens as far as like understanding like reading people, how like this is a good person, this is not a good person, or whatever it may be. Like you have to understand like who you're working with. But also I think the other aspect of it too is that what happens in the dog world, and we've talked about this before, is you get a mentee, and like sometimes I like, for me, like my mentor, was extremely was pretty tough on me and everything like that. But like you never traded sides. So I mean, other aspect of it too is like loyalty. That 3-year period, 4-year period where dog trainers go ahead and like all of a sudden think that they know everything. And that's just and it happens, and it's almost comical because I've seen this over and over and over. Because like me, I encourage like anyone that works with me, anyone that like does like that. Like I always encourage like people to like go ahead and like do other seminars, learn from other people, do these things. And when it comes to actual like primal canine stuff, like I want them to like obviously they have to follow what we're doing for our own, like for that way it's all consistent when we do group classes and private lessons, and it's not different. But I always encourage people to gain more knowledge, because I mean like that's the most important thing. But knowledge is a dangerous thing, especially when like you're young in the game.
And you get a little bit. And what is that, Dunning-Kruger effect? What it's called? Like people should Google Dunning-Kruger effect. And it's this process of which you get a little information. It's how people relate and behave in accordance with the information they've gained and how long they've been involved, right? With anything. So you gain a little bit of knowledge and suddenly you're cocky, arrogant, you think you know it all. But the more you stay in the game and the more you learn, the less you think you know. And you start to realize, holy crap, there's a lot I don't know. And you actually can find yourself maybe a little bit more insecure with your ability and your knowledge when you get over that first hump, because you realize, oh my gosh, this is a never-ending journey. I don't know as much as I thought I did. There's a whole world of things I don't know. And I realize that I might not even presently be aware of how much I don't know. And that's when you start to get a little more of a realistic perspective on where you're at. That's also where people can fall off, because they can get discouraged. And that's what separates those who are going to be in it for the long haul, is those who are like, no, I get it. Like, there's a lot more for me to learn. I'm excited to be in here. I'm excited to keep learning, but I can tell by what's happening in front of me, I do have some competency. I am getting better. I am learning. I mean, the same dude. Okay. Same thing happens in jujitsu.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Think about the transition from white belt to blue belt.
Well,
And
purple belt syndrome, like, or when you get into there.
Yep. It's you in the beginning, you're like overwhelmed, but then all of a sudden you get some tools and you're like, ha, 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 yeah. And some people walk away at that point. But then those of us who stick it out, all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, like I don't know anything. Like,
Well,
oh wow.
and that's one of the things that like when it comes to like I mean that's actually the perfect like almost like correlation when it comes to like dog training and being a
Jiu-jitsu
dog
and
trainer.
dogs.
I mean, because I mean, I'll show a video of Ozzy right now doing that stuff. So like when it comes to learning, I feel like that learning curve is like they come up, they apprentice, they do these things, and like they go into it, and then 3 years and they're very confident, right? So I'm like thinking about like again jujitsu, 3 years to come into it, like typically you're at your blue belt or purple belt depending on how much you're training at that time, and then you kind of get wrecked in brown belt, and then you go to black belt, and they're like, oh, you're much calmer in that sense. So and then you kind of like it almost like it's like a mental thing where you start to understand because you get hyped, and then you learn how to control it. And like now you understand the techniques and the tools and all the things that like come with it, right? Like everything that comes with it.
Mhm.
So in dog training, like especially with social media, like we talk about this all the time, you get pumped up on social media, everyone's like, oh, you're great, everything's great, they're like, oh, that's whatever, you're doing an amazing job. And then you finally realize like, oh, you don't know shit. Like you literally just don't know anything because you get wrecked, like you get wrecked in that sense, or you should get wrecked in that sense. And you're talking about jiu-jitsu, and then it kind of just develops from there. Like that. I mean, that happened to me, when I was like 3 or 4 years in the game, and like, dog training when we were like building it up in Primal Canine. Like, I was building Primal Canine, building all those other trainers. I was like, oh man, this is great or whatever. And then my mentor came and told me, he's like, hey man, like scale back. and pretty much put me in place. He's like, you need to like understand these things because like you're not as great as you think you are right now.
Mhm.
Just because you're getting that, people telling you like, oh, you're doing good, all these other things like that, doesn't mean that actually you're doing good.
Okay, so what measuring sticks are used? What metrics of success are should people be thinking about in terms of identifying where they're at? Like you just said, you were feeling this way, you're growing, your mentor came in and said, So what metrics were you using, or what metrics do you think people should use to identify, are you successful in your business, your dog training business?
Well, I think it's more of I mean, obviously, if you look at the financial aspect of things, right? Like financial aspect of things, like you're getting bigger, like you make more money, like all these things happen, right? But that's also how things can get out of control, because you look at the financial value of it. But if we're talking about actually like dog training and like training in general, like I tell my guys all the time, I was like, you should never feel like you're here. It always should be like you're here trying to get here, no matter if you have $1 million in the bank or whatever the hell it is. It should always be like you're here and you're just trying to get there. Because if you're looking at yourself, if like you learn so much and like all this other stuff like that, then like there's no room for growth. There's no room for that because at that point you think that she's gonna hate me for this king shit. Like like you're gonna always look at it that way. But I think the most important thing is always looking at it. And this is what, Terry told me this, always looking at your life as like you are, obviously be confident in yourself, but look at it as if you started from the bottom and you're still starting from the bottom. Because
All right, so,
all it does is create growth.
so what's more important, you being happy with the dog when they leave, or the client being happy with the dog when they leave?
So that's a tricky one because
I know, that's why I'm gritted as I ask that question.
it's so like that's a tricky one because like for me, I know my expectations are much higher than the client's expectations. Because I want like them to go home and be like, oh man, this dog's like amazing, like all this other stuff like that. So I'll hold on to dogs for a while of doing those things. So for me, it's more about what my expectations are on the dog, because I know my expectations are much higher than the actual dog owner. Because sometimes these guys just want like, sit down, heel, not even a stand, like, all the other things like that. So like for me, that's my expectation on it. So I try to hold it to the highest expectation possible when it comes to actual, like the training things. Like we've done, we we've held dogs for like let's say boarding train, for example. We've held boarding trains for freaking 2 months, even though they spent this one price for 21 days. But because that dog is not where I think it's at or where it should be at, we'll hold on to it. So that's kind of, I guess, yeah. So it'd be more of on a me thing or a company thing on our side.
I think one of the challenging aspects of, being a dog training entrepreneur, and I see this, and not just in my own journey, but I've seen it in others, is balancing that idea of what you want for the dog versus what the client wants for the dog. Now, I'm talking about pet dog training,
Yeah.
right? I think comp dog stuff's way easier because you're dealing with a different dog owner. It's much more clear to define what they want, because typically if it's sport or comp stuff, like there's point structures involved, and we have this wonderful metric, like is the dog performing according to the standard of the scorecard. But with pet dogs, that's different. And I've seen folks who are heavily involved in sport, trainers who are heavily involved in sport, the lines get a little blurry when, of course, there isn't much money in that. That's a labor of love. but the lines get blurry when they then are working with that pet dog client. And when I say blurry, I mean right down to how a behavior is taught.
Yep.
And I went through this on my own little, you know, my journey's been up and down. Like, it's all right, pet dog stuff. And then it's like, oh, I'm involved in sports stuff. And then I'm involved in, you know, high level training that no one's competing in. And it's just for personal. And then it's okay, I'm back with pet dogs again. And then I'm playing with new stuff with my own dogs. And I think one of a good example of this that I've spoke about with my mentees is the place behavior. The place behavior is such a wonderful singular behavior to have so many discussions about dog training on, because I see it used in different ways. I know I use the place behavior in a way I don't see very many people use it in terms of training.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about, you know, at one point in time, the way I was training it. And I remember I was very much intoxicated by the power of markers. As I got really good at using them, I got better at using them. I started using a mechanical marker, aka a clicker, and like started really playing with.
Me first started talking.
Huh?
That's how me and you first started talking. That was literally like one of the first conversations me and you ever had.
Oh, about clicks.
Yeah.
It's a cool tool.
Yeah.
So I was pretty drunk on the amazing power of communication with my own dogs and dogs I was working with. And I started to see a problem. And the problem is what we as a dog trainer want from a dog, and forgetting the client and forgetting what the client wants. So I might teach a place behavior, and what you'll get, or what you could get, if it was a dog that I was handling, owning, and I absolutely planned on doing sport with, right? Or competing with. When my dog's on place, you're going to see them ears up, like eager. They hit that place, they hammer on it, they're staring at you, and they are, and here's the key thing, ready for the next command.
Yeah.
Do that with a pet dog. And ask yourself, is that what they want? Is that what does the pet owner want? Or maybe not even what they want, because lots of times they just don't understand. Is that what they should have? As opposed to a dog who goes to a place and their ears aren't up, they're chill, they're relaxed. They might even put their head down and just chill and hang out there and take a nap. Well, you can get those two very different pictures from a dog based on how you teach the behavior, based on how you train it, based on all the little interactions and lessons that take place. And training that same behavior, two different trainers can get very different results from very similar dogs based on the path they go. And that is determined by remembering what the mission is, who's your client, what are you trying to achieve? And I saw that with myself, and I see it with others, especially if they're heavily involved in sport, forgetting that the dogs that are paying the bills aren't competing in sports. The dog owner doesn't want that dog that's like fired up at the end of every command, especially stationary commands, looking for the next thing, oh yeah. No, that's not what they want. And honestly, they couldn't handle that. They need a more subdued, more mellow, more relaxed, biddable experience with the dog. Does that make sense?
So that's one thing like that's different. Like I tell these guys, like, especially because we just got a whole bunch of trainers in, or we have like, my new trainers that came in from other parts of the country who don't understand like California. So this is the thing, is California has this whole like positive enforcement thing that's happening right now. They're trying to ban e-collars, prong collars, all these things. So when a dog, let's say if we do a dog who's not happy to do the command, all of a sudden the dog is suppressed. All of a sudden the dog has been necessarily, or not really, but they think like, oh, the dog's abused or whatever it may be, all those things. If the dog's not peppy to do things, so finding the balance between the two things. And as a trainer, we see these things normally, like we do, like, oh hey, like maybe the dog's just kind of like just a flat dog, like we're not overcorrecting the dog, but communicating that to the actual handler, like that's one of those things like, well, why is my dog so like calm and relaxed? I want him to be happy, because we've gotten so much of this like hippie-ish like style of training where everything needs to be positive and all this other stuff like that. Like that's where you start to see, that's where I start to see the difference. So we pump dogs up a little bit just so they look like, they're happy and everything like that. But like, meanwhile, like you said, the owner wants a dog who's nice and calm, but they don't got a dog that's nice and calm. They got a dog who wants to work. They want to do these things. So expectation versus reality is very different.
Especially if a dog owner doesn't understand fundamental canine body language. Like, oh, that dog looks sad. And I'm like, no, that dog's actually being incredibly polite. Like a
Yep.
polite dog is often labeled as a sad dog because of body posture. Like, why is the dog approaching you with his head lower? Because he's super polite and respectful and doesn't want to run afoul of me. And like, but he is coming to me and his tail is wagging and he's rubbing up against me and he's giving and receiving affection. He's not sad. He's just being really polite. Or they'll see a dog who's actually being a rude, obnoxious, pushy jerk and go, oh, that dog's happy. It has nothing to do with happiness and sadness. It has to do with, you do realize that dog is intentionally disrespecting you.
Yeah.
Like that dog is actually kind of pooping on you right now and you don't know it, but they won't know it until they get into a situation where they go to like take a ball or they go to take a bone or they go to sit on the couch, the dog's on the couch and they're like, well, why is the dog growling at me? And it's like, you remember all those times you thought he was like being happy? He was actually being a prick. And now you're seeing it in a different context and you're not connecting the dots because you don't even understand body language.
That's that's another thing we talk about all the time, is that like dog trainers typically will like kind of reformat how they're doing their training based on what they post online. Because
Elaborate.
So like basically like, you see it, like people will be like, I've seen it a bunch of times with just like some of the mentees I have and like the apprentices and shadow programs we have, is that they're like, oh, I got blasted online, so I'm not gonna like train this way, or I'm not gonna show it that way. So they start doing different things because of what someone else has like been saying on there, because that's how much power that online has on some on especially the new dog trainers, people who are going to be watching this stuff. It's something that power has there. So it's like reformatting like your program based on criticism
from people that don't know how to spell dog.
Exactly. It's like and that's a tough one. I mean, like I was telling my guys already, like we did so obviously like, we're progressive dog trainers, and I'll use the term progressive because we are progressive in that sense. It's something that we continuously push, like, and then you get, bang, 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 bang. People are like, oh, maybe we should switch the way that we, and it's not me particularly, but some dog trainers will go like, oh, we got to switch the format. And that can be hindering to the actual business. And that's actually hindering to the actual dog itself.
Welcome to the world of dog training 2023.
Right.
And balancing all that. And we talked about, this is an ongoing theme that, yes, will come up in, almost every episode of the show is, how to, and I think it should, how to manage social media, how to manage what you put out, how to, I don't, and I'm sure you've noticed, I know other people have noticed, like I don't give a lot of tutorial type stuff on social media. I just don't. Now I'm aware that those types of posts, that type of content seems to be what hits hard in terms of engagement and the algorithm and stuff, because people are looking for quick tips and they're looking for quick fixes and hacks. And I know me personally, I'm always trying to balance my own ethical values, my position, with the fact that I do need to be somewhat productive on social media. I have to be. It's a necessary evil right now. And it's like, well, how do I maintain a successful growth while not compromising my own principles and values. And, I've been stuck at 12,000 followers on Instagram for over a year. Like, it's like I'm stuck. And it's like, okay, cool. Now, do I have some plans for some changes I'm going to make? Of course I do. But it's only through massive amounts of thought, reflection, contemplation, speaking to my mentors, speaking to my advisors, and being like, all right, this is what I need to make changes, but I'll never do this. I'll never do that. Like, here are my hard lines in the sand. Like, because it's like, it'd be irresponsible for me to give too much tutorial stuff, because then someone comes out, they see it real quick, they go to try it, and they either get, massively wrong or unproductive or dysfunctional results, or they get hurt, or a dog gets hurt. And it's tough. So I try to provoke thought more than anything else. I know I'm reflecting on going about it a little bit differently moving forward. But that's a whole nother topic. But it's tough to think about what you put out there, because there's what gets hits. But what about the collateral damage? There's collateral damage. There is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's so that the dog, have you seen the dog park video that I put out? It's like it's on my personal page. It's like, dog parks are bad.
It's a talking head video, right? It's like you talking.
Yeah.
Yep, I saw that one.
So that one, and this is something like I think that's really important, because I mean, dog trainers in general, like, you work 7 days a week, you have dogs on you all the time. It's really important. And like we talked about this all the time, like the mental health aspect of things. It's like we did the dog park video, and like, they reposted it, and it's because the media team, they're constantly constantly grinding out, because that's just how we roll. Like, I literally put the dog that started this whole company with down, like, just because he was dying, and then wake up to like, you're a dildo, you're a clown, like a bunch of like negative things, right? So you wake up to that stuff, and like, how negatively that can affect you. And then as a dog trainer in your own business, even though like, obviously, like, Primal Canine, like we're fairly established.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're pretty much like, we're very high up in that thing. Like, we do a lot of different things, but that stuff, like that dude, that should piss me off, man. I was extremely mad for I'm still mad, in that sense, because, talking about how you communicate online is very much important.
Mm-hmm. And then managing those communications in terms of the messages that you're receiving. So,
Yeah.
You look at it, if we were to look at like bandwidth, right? I like to use the term bandwidth. Like, how much bandwidth do you have for this? Or I might say, hey, right now I don't have the bandwidth for that. Like,
Yeah.
someone comes to me personally, or someone comes to me with something, it's like, not right now. I'd rather not engage when I know I don't have the bandwidth, because now I'm going to be more susceptible to engaging in a dysfunctional, or I won't be as functional as I want to be for that task. And, you were dealing with an incredibly significant loss. So your bandwidth is pretty heavily consumed with dealing with that the best way you can. Well, now all of a sudden you're dealing with a bunch of idiots saying a bunch of things that they would never say to your face. And, on a regular Tuesday, with nothing else going on, you might just look at it and be like, yep, whatever. But when your bandwidth is consumed by life, loss, the reality of the world, it's like, all right, it stung a little bit more, and I know what that feels like. Is there are some days those comments roll right off my back. There are other days they sit there longer than they should. And sometimes that might just be 2 seconds. It lingered for 2 seconds longer than it should have. And I think that's just something that we have to recognize as a reality, and just constantly work at getting better about it. But I think about, like you said, the new dog trainers, new people into this world, or even new dog handlers. Like, I don't want to exclude them from this. Like, people who have a dog, and I see this with my clients, dude. Like, they start to see dogs for what they are. They start to learn how to communicate with them. They start to have really functional relationships with their own dogs. So then they start posting their success on social media.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I might have met them in a Facebook group, a breed specific Facebook group, which you already know what those groups are like. You know, it's
Yep.
100,000 people who can't get their dog to come when called, but they all will judge the snot out of everyone else. And I've seen numerous clients start to post some really inspiring successes that they've had, like really big wins with their dog. And their first reaction is they notice they get very little feedback or engagement on their post in comparison to when they posted a picture of their dog when it was overweight on the couch and out of control. They got a lot of feedback then, but now they post their dog like appropriately coming to a heel position, or their dog coming when called, or their dog patiently waiting to be fed. And they're super proud of themselves. And I'm glad they're proud of themselves. But either A, they don't get the engagement they did previously, or B, the engagement they do get is freaking toxic. Like these people who can't control their own dogs will start shitting on my client for, look at, why is your dog sitting there? Why don't you just feed them? Like, well, no, I'm teaching them impulse control and respect and manners. Like, what's, oh, you're a dictator, you're a tyrant. And they start like talking crap. And I've had to do a lot of coaching and support to my own clients to be like, listen, it's okay. You're doing the right thing. Are you happy with what's going on with your dog? Yes, I am. Okay, then. These strangers on the internet, they don't matter.
Exactly. I mean,
They
like
don't
that's the
matter.
thing. You put your content out there to help the people that can actually absorb, or let's say that, like you put it out there just to be like, hey, like I'm proud of what I did. Look at my dog, like dude did this. You know, it's great. And you know that you're doing it ethically, you know it's moral, like you know, you all the stuff that's going there. But the thing too is that like we what's the term you Kitty, you know this one. Is it anamorphosized or what's the
Oh, anthropomorphize.
so like when you're just like you start to put your own human feelings into what the dog should, because you're so soft that you want everything to be positive. But in reality, life is balanced. You know, life is hard in general. So dogs have that same sense. And you know, we got to remember how we created dogs, how dogs became dogs. You know, they're not wolves. You know, they're dogs. You know, we created them to be biddable. They have structure. They need both aspects of things.
Mhm.
We have this like, you know, this and it's the 2023 or 2022. I mean, actually probably started, you know, a long way ago. But we have this like idea that things need to be like this purely positive thing because we want our life to be purely positive. So everyone goes online and they're like, see an e-collar, see a prong collar, you know, see all these other things. And there's like, they start destroying like these new dog trainers, like mental health, because they, like you said, they can't even recall their own dog. They start doing
Mhm.
all this like theoretical training versus actual theoretical and like or applicational training.
Mhm.
So it's
No,
like
but
all
the science says, and it's like, okay, first off, you do realize behavioral science isn't real science because you can't come to true conclusions on brain stuff. Like no one ever wants to talk about that. Like behavioral science is not chemistry. It's not physics. Those things have math involved. Those things have undeniable, provable hypotheses that can be tested and recreated over and over again. That's what makes them become laws, right? So you have a theory and you have a law. Well, there are no laws in behavioral science. Let me say that again. There are no laws in behavioral science because you can't actually prove anything in behavioral science to the standard of it becoming a law. It's all theory. It is all theory. So when people start talking about, well, science says, it's like, do you even know what science is? Because
yeah.
if you did, you'd know that behavioral science is kind of not a real science. It's just observations, and you can create experiments, but it's really tough to prove and recreate because you're dealing with something intangible, which is psychology or the brain. And we're not talking about brain chemistry. We're talking about abstract thought, feelings, emotions. And, you know, people start getting, like we talked about earlier in the show today, like a little bit of knowledge, but then you think you know everything. And it's like, cool, you read a book. I'm glad you read a book. Reading books is good. Reading is fundamental. Now go out and recreate it with an animal. And show me what happens. Did you read all of the book? Did you just read the first page? Did you read the middle page? Did you only read the page that validated your thought, but you didn't read the 100 pages that contradicted it? Um, and meanwhile, the dog owner achieving success with their animal and improving a functional relationship is just out there like, what's happening? Like, I did all this great stuff with my dog and everyone's telling me I should burn in hell. Or the new dog trainer who put something out on social media and how they truly helped a dog, or they literally saved a dog's life. They took a dog that was about to make some mistakes that was going to end its life, and they taught that dog to never make those mistakes again. And they're feeling really good about themselves. They put something on social media, and then the ignorant mob is like, burn in hell. And you're like, wait a minute, I just saved this dog's life. Like, what, huh? What? Huh? And it's like, yeah, stop caring about what strangers think. I mean, I had I don't know how to log into it anymore because I'm really bad with having too many passwords, but like I actually had a truly personal Instagram account, meaning it had nothing to do with dogs. It was personal. You know how many posts I had on it?
One.
One, and that post was the profile picture.
Yeah.
Now I followed a bunch of stuff. I followed things that I personally enjoy. You know, I followed a bunch of knife pages. I've had followed a bunch of like dirt bike pages, all kinds of stuff like that. I had no posts. The reason why? Because I don't give a crap about telling any of you what I'm doing. If you're my friend, you know about what I'm doing because I'll call you about it, or we're talking about it, or you're involved in my life like that. Like there were no posts on there because I could give two craps about putting posts on social media for personal reasons. Like that's not what I was using it for. I was using it to learn how to. I followed a bunch of I'm obsessed with pages where they show you how to tie fishing knots. Like they give you these cool instructionals, and not that I fish as much as I'd like to, but like I follow stuff like that, like stuff that's cool to me. I didn't have any posts. I don't have any posts. My Instagram now, it's for business. As personal as some of it might look, it's all connected to business. My Facebook, it's rooted in business. I don't care to tell people what I had for dinner. Like now, if I put a post like that, I guarantee you there's a reason why I did it. I'm playing with an algorithm, or maybe I just want the public to know I'm a human being. You know, like I am human. I do have things I enjoy doing. But somehow it's all connected to how I want dog owners or dog trainers or people out there who follow me to grow in some way, or it's for the purpose of helping people grow. It's not for the purpose of, I just want people to see what I had for dinner.
Yeah, I use mine for the sense of like, it's like obviously like we've talked about this before, like my life started very rough, in the world. So I use mine, it's obviously for business and everything like that, but I use it for the aspect of transparency and people that can relate.
Mhm.
Because at certain points in time, like we've talked about, like when you get shit on online and like you deal with people like that, you feel alone. Like you feel alone in that, and in our industry, when you're working 7 days a week, you got a bunch of dogs going on, you can feel that alone real quick. So at certain points, like in my career, I was very much like, damn, like, you get a little bit like it gets a little funny, like life gets a little funny. So you try to relate to other, like for me, like I look at other, not even the dog trainers, other people who put that out there, that information out there as inspiration. So they don't, and nothing bad happens to them, right? Anything like that. So like that's why like I use mine for business, but I also use the transparency of what my life is like, just so people can be like, oh hey, like okay, I'm good. He got through it, so I can get through it.
Well, it's for helping. Why don't we oversimplify it? For
Yeah.
helping. Helping what? Well, it all depends on the post. Sometimes I might be helping a dog. Sometimes I might be helping a dog owner. Sometimes I might be helping a dog trainer. Maybe I might be helping someone who doesn't have a dog, doesn't want a dog, but they relate to my content in some way, and it's going to help them. It just so happens our businesses also revolve around helping, right?
Yep.
Like when you're a dog trainer, at the end of the day, your business exists in the capacity of helping. You're
Exactly.
helping.
That's what we
It's a
do.
service. You're helping.
So we talked about before, we're problem solvers. You know, at the end of the day, like whether it's, I mean, I'm sure you well, I don't know if we were referenced this before, but Kitty, like, you know, like sometimes people like you guys are marriage counselors or therapists in that sense. Like people talk about that, you know, like how like it's all communication.
Yep.
So
All of it.
that's all. Yep, it's all communication. It's just learning how to communicate. If people think dog training, or if you're a new dog trainer, if you go into the aspect of it thinking like, oh, we're just training the dog, like, yeah, you are training a dog, but you're also training a person how to communicate with a dog, which in return helps them communicate with the rest
Everyone
of
else in their life, if they choose to adopt the principles. Yeah.
yeah. And like then that's something that we're pushing. We push hard here at Primal for that.
You should.
Because that's how you should dog train.
Well, and that too, you mentioned, you got some awesome personalities who just joined the squad out there from different parts of the country. And like it matters. Like they have to learn, like, okay, you're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
Here's where you are. You have to understand your audience. You have to understand your student. And I always say one of the most important skills of being a good teacher is being a good student. Because when you're a teacher, you are a student of your student. As awkward as that sounds, you are a student of your student. You have to learn who you're teaching. You have to learn how they communicate. You have to learn their strengths, their future strengths. You have to learn their triggers, their soft spots. We talked about that, like, last episode with that post I did. Like you have to learn about them if you have any intention, any hope, any, mission at influencing their life, their knowledge, their behavior. You have to learn who they are. And that is impacted by region. It's impacted by location.
Yep.
Heck, even within the state of California, you travel to different areas, as I've traveled now, thanks to Canine Street League, getting me out to California and checking that state out. Like I've seen very different social climates within the same state.
And I will say this: California, out of all the states I've been to, I'll be Katie. I'm actually gonna be in Florida, February 26th in Orange County.
You okay? I saw those dates. I didn't know if you were coming or not.
So I'm only coming to the law enforcement one. It's a day trip if you want to come hang out.
I might be able to do that.
So like I don't know where geographically I'm really ignorant, so I don't know. Like,
It's like if I think I know where you're going because I saw the post. I think that's like an hour and a half from me. So if you're going to be there for the day, I think that's a Sunday, the 26th, because 25th is a Saturday.
yeah, I got to fly out. I have to fly out. So I'm going to fly out there and do this thing for Ray Allen and for the guys over there. So we're gonna move it. I'm gonna actually, off topic, but
Keep me in the loop on that. Keep me in the loop. I'll see if I can run out there.
Awesome. But like you're saying, everything that we do in dog training is very much so. We've said it before 1,000 times. It's not dog training. Even when it comes to mentoring and shadow programs, it's a lot of we as dog trainers, as much people want to say like, oh hey, like you're playing with puppies, like you're not playing with puppies, like you're literally like you can play with puppies, but you're actually like helping people in their lives, and that's what's most important. That's why we do what we do, is to help people get better in whatever the communication aspect of it. I mean, shoot, man, like dogs, for example, for me, before dogs, like I didn't talk. I was very like, when I got into like, fighting in prison and everything like that, I was not much of I didn't talk. I was never saying anything. Like even when we first started talking, like I was very much like very, very much not like a communicative person, but dogs help you communicate. Understanding how to communicate is very important, and that it translates to the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. If you let it. If you
got
let
to be
it.
accepting.
Yeah.
You have to be accepting, and if I can do it, you guys can do it, and it's it's very important.
He ain't lying, world. Listen to him.
Yep. It's very, very important. It's very, very important that you understand that stuff. Like that's the whole purpose of Drinks and Dogs. What we're doing. Besides building the culture and building a better culture and understanding, it's a very important thing.
Lead by example, sir. That's what we got to do.
Shit, that's what I got a freaking media team already downstairs right now, and I got to film a bunch of other stuff. And like, I hate being on camera. So it's like, it's very much like, I'm like, oh, great.
See, I don't mind it. I just don't have the team to help me. So I actually have some filming to do today. And you know how hard it's going to be when you're a solo and like go on one side of the camera, make sure it's focused, then go back on the other. Oh, you found out it's not focused. You record 20 minutes worth of stuff. You watch it, you review it, and it was out of focus the whole time, or the mic cable wasn't plugged in properly. Ooh. Ooh.
Dude, there's no way, bro. I mean, I
Yeah.
used to do that in the beginning, but there's like, already I'm just like, all right, camera's on. I'm like, God, all right, turn it on and then go from there.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yep.
right. Actually, I do have to do a sponsorship shout out here.
Do it.
So let's to Ray Allen Canine. RayAllenCanine.com/canine SL. Use the Primal 10 code for all your dog training needs. If you go to Ray Allen is amazing. They have a bunch of different stuff. It doesn't need to be working dog stuff. They have pet stuff. They have tons of hundreds. I mean, I don't even know how many things are on there. There's tons of things on there. So yeah, RayAllenCanine.com/canine SL. KD, Socratic Canine.
Check it out. www.Socratic Canine, spelled out CANINE. Follow me on Instagram at KD Matthews. Find all kinds of good stuff. You won't get tutorials, that's for sure, but I'll get you in the right direction. Canine Blueprint, always open enroll. Well, always currently still in open enrollment, meaning I am absolutely willing to talk to dog owners who want to learn how to be the best dog owner they can be in that program. That's how you can find me, Socratic Canine, at KD Matthews on Instagram.
There you go. And then we also have a whole new thing going with Canine Street League coming up right now.
What's up with that?
So we have 3 tour, or we're going to start with the Catalyst, which is, Katie, if you want to get out here February 7th, the Catalyst is it's like a big venue, like a bunch of like bands go there. And so they wanted us to come in there and do a bite night. So we're doing a bite night at the Catalyst in Santa Cruz on February 7th. And I have Jacques Bonnet, Chris Corley, Michael Herman, Corey Styles, Chris Psycho Sykes, he's going to be there. Myself will be there. Hopefully I'm not missing anybody because I have a horrible memory. It's going to be a full-blown night of event. Bar, DJ, the ground star, Rory, he'll be there. Oscar Mora is going to be there. Richard King is going to be there. We started that out, and that's the first start to Road to Street League. So like that, and because Road to Street League at that point, I don't know how the dates, but after that we'll go to Florida. We're going to be in Florida, then we're going to be in Houston, and then we're going to be in Memphis, and then everyone might, I'm not going to give too much detail, but we're going to end up in Trial 4 in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I've been busy.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
So lots of fun stuff on the way with Street League stuff. So make sure you guys pay attention to the Canine Street League page, because we have a whole little media packet coming out, and you'll see everything.
Good stuff. I'll start getting my voice ready.
Right.
Start having my honey in my tea.
You and Bob, you guys are going to be doing so much work. Dude. But so let's wrap this one up. I appreciate you, brother.
Back at you. Always a pleasure.
Make sure you guys share, subscribe, comment, do everything we need for the algorithm stuff. And yeah, guys.
Good to talk to you, buddy.
Talk to you later.
See ya.